Unit number 3, technology management. Welcome everyone. So in this unit, we're going to be talking about uh, how to change the infrastructure, how to plan for the infrastructure of technology. That means we want to make a digital transformation. We want to have digital services. We want to have interaction with the consumer through online methods, but that doesn't happen automatically. We have to think what are the platforms that we're going to use, what servers we need, what kind of hardware we need in order for us to do it, and what kind of software also we need to use in order for offer a certain service, right? So here we have, for example, the introduction of what is a digital transformation. I think that will be very useful for you. Watch this video so that you can see how we need to do a whole implementation in order to really be successful at it. Okay, very good. So in this case, when we're talking about the digital business infrastructure, we need to think of three main things. Firstly, the intranet, which is the resources that we're going to have digitally for our own employees to communicate. Either we have softwares that, let's say, for example, link the finance with the marketing, or for example, emails. Like, for example, we have the cognin.ac.kr. That's part of an intranet because in the end we use it internally. We also use it to communicate externally, but mostly it's internally. We have also our for example, our e-campus, etc. Then we have the customers, which is the internet. How we communicate externally through blogs, through web pages, how do we do it? And then we have an extranet. An extranet is a large intranet where also we communicate internally also with suppliers and people that is providing our service. This one is mostly done by larger companies which have that capability of setting a system that goes beyond borders of our own company, right? So in this case, so first of all, here we have some issues of digital business infrastructure. We have to ask a couple questions. So first of all, which digital access platforms should we support? So in this case, do I want to do mobile? I want to do laptop? What kind of requirements I need in my operation in order for, or what kind of services I want to provide? Maybe there are some on-the-go booking, maybe it is just for searching information. What do I want to do? So in this case, again, we have to think of the customer journey and what we want them to have throughout their journey, right? We have to think of the setup and selection of services for a new digital service. Like I said, what do we want to achieve? What do we want to offer? Is it a delivery system? Is it a gaming platform? Is it an information? Is it a social interaction? What do we want to do? And of course, what kind of quality we're going to provide out of it. Everything of this one goes together with monetary resources. You want to have a good platform, you want to have a good service, you will have to invest on it. Either little by little or one shot, but a good service comes with a good investment. Then we will ask, where do we host the applications? Am I going to have an internal server, or I'm going to do a cloud computing, which is I have a software in a cloud, or a hardware, well, not hardware, software, programs there in the cloud, or which is my own cloud, or am I going to use a software as a service, which is rather than me taking the time to develop my software, developing my cloud, managing it, another company will do it for me, like maybe Amazon, or like, for example, Amazon Web Services, or Azure in Microsoft, or Oracle, or IBM. Who's gonna be doing it for me? So in this case, we have to think how we're gonna host those services and applications, and how we're gonna manage them. Then we're gonna think of the application integration, which is how we're gonna integrate all those platforms that we have, internal, external, from the intranet, from the extranet, how I put them together, and also, for example, how I change from legacy systems, means old school, everything that I have on paper, how am I gonna digitalize it? And then, of course, like I said, how I integrate all of those ones so they are not silos. we call information silos, or IT silos, when we have different departments, the different operational units, and they are not connected. The information is not flowing back and forth, meaning we have a server here, we have this information here, and it's locked in there in a silo. Then we have the marketing, then they have the information, they have their server, but it doesn't communicate with maybe finance, right? So we have that one. And then, of course, we need to manage what kind of content we have and how often we do it. Larger companies, they have content managers that they are often doing campaigns, often doing messages, often poking the consumer in different ways and interesting ways, right? We need to understand that usually any kind of content that we publish as a company, it doesn't last longer than a week, right? The going viral is it goes strong, it goes quick, it goes fast, and it stops also the same way. So it's strange when really we have anything that lasts more than a week. So the same thing, how we manage employee access to the internet, how we, not only the internet, all the nets, how they access them. Do we give them access, for example, because if we have an intranet and you have very critical information, they cannot access it from home. They need access to a secure location, which is maybe in the office. Only you have the intranet and you can only access that information in there, and it's controlled by the main server. So again, that goes together with the security, how we control the access, how we control the data, and how we make sure that it's not leaked in data, important data. It can be from the consumer, it can be from the company, it depends. So in this case, we need to support a growing range of digital technology platforms. So in this case, if we're going to have a digital marketing strategy, we have to think, do we need it to be just for the computer, for the mobile, or any tablet? Remember, you don't see the content in the same way in a laptop or a computer than in your phone. So we have to think which option are we going to take. Are we going to do both websites? Same one that is generic and works for kind of both? I said kind of because, like I said, it's difficult to have an interface that matches both of them. Or I'm going to focus on having only the laptop because I don't have any services on the go. Maybe services on the go, I can just put link to a certain website and just explain some information, and that's all, right? So in this case, again, we have to think of that. And alternatively, we have to think also if there's any other platforms that I want to look at, like kiosks outdoor or gaming platforms like a Xbox or a PlayStation or so. I'm gonna involve also touch screens, what kind of hardware I am going to put all my software or my customer touch points, how they're going to interact with me. So again, we have those challenges. I do one website or two websites, everything costs. It's not free, right? Second thing, write content. We need a content manager. That is, we have a clear vision of what content and what we want to communicate to the consumer and what is our online value proposition. Then, of course, we talk about the UX, which is smaller screen size and lack of keyboard, make it easy. So this things is more like an application, right? Which is, I can just browse without really typing much things. Example, Instagram. Instagram is a very good example of this, where I really don't need to type things unless I want to search for something. Then we have the personalization. This, for example, is the case of Amazon. Amazon has focused a lot on the personalizing the website, so they keep the cookies of what you've been searching, and they provide recommendations, same as YouTube. They provide recommendations. They have the one-click buying. They personalize of what they think you may like, right? And then, of course, we have the promotion as well, which is how I create this mobile presence is by setting your promotions across different platforms of social media or etc. Right? So in this case, we have to think of the digital business infrastructure. So first of all, we need to think of all these things, which is we need the storage of the physical do we need any server? Do we have enough capacity to have our own server or not? Right? This is the case, for example, when we talk about our own university, they have a server. The KTIS has its own server. It doesn't run by another company, so that's why you see it chokes. It chokes precisely because it doesn't have the capacity as compared to some other platforms that perhaps, like for example Blackboard doesn't choke because it has very large capacity, right? In this case, it goes together with the processing, which is I need to understand how fast it needs to be the processor of my information according to the volumes of data traffic that I have. When we're talking about, for example, banking, we need to understand the processing must be very fast and must be very accurate because in the end, I need it. In the infrastructure, we need to talk about the human and external interfaces of the network, which again, in this case, we're talking about the extra structure, which is we need to think of the physical infrastructure, and we need to think of how the people is going to manage and access it, right? Whether there's going to be any computers, hardware, where we access it, etc. Are we going to do it through cloud computing, or how we're going to do it? And then we have the application or content, which is, like I said, what kind of content I have in there. And finally, the intelligence, which is how can I transform information into knowledge, and how can I apply it to have better processes. So I transform the whole company in infrastructure, physical infrastructure. Then how am I going to use that data? So for example, in this case, I have to do an analysis of the data that I have available and look for intelligence on how am I going to use it in the best method. This is a very critical thing because many companies invest a lot of money in their infrastructure and they don't know what to do with the data. So what to do? They promised me that the digital transformation will change my world, and the problem is I invested a lot of money, but I don't know what to do with that information, and that's where intelligence comes in. Okay, so we have here, for example, here we have examples. We have the digital business services. We have, for example, the CRM, the company resource management, which is in this case helps us to, for example, move information across the different departments. And then we have, of course, software layers, which is we need to understand what's internal, what's external, how we work it. We have physical networks. In this case, we need to understand the capacity of our physical networks, the same with the storage and the content. So everything goes together. What do I need? How am I going to achieve it? What resources I need in terms of data structure, and how am I going to manage them, right? So very good. So now we have, when we are creating a new customer-facing digital service, we have to think of the domain name. This is much argued because you want your, if I put mcdonalds.com because it's the first thing that comes into my mind, can I really have that domain or not? Or whether people is going to another domain by accident and so on. We have to think of who's hosting it. Do I have my own server or there's someone else? Nowadays, everyone is going for cloud providers. Everybody's thinking of that. Is cheaper, is better, is more efficient than you managing it. In the end, if your server goes down, everything goes down. But the server of Microsoft seldom goes down. It goes down too, but seldom, like very, 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 very seldom. I'm talking about one in X number of years. That's nothing. And then, of course, like I said, we have the selection of additional software as a service platforms. In this case, for example, let me give you an example of a software as a service. I have a hotel, and in the hotel, I need to manage the check-ins, the check-outs, the capacity, etc., the memberships, and so many things. I need access when the consumer decides to book my hotel. I want to integrate that information with that. I need to integrate information also with the cleaning of the rooms, etc. So I have the option of have a server in the hotel, deploy my own software, plan it, structure it, design it, implement it, and run it by myself. It's good, I own it, but the problem is that perhaps it's not as efficient as I want because it doesn't have many capabilities. So there's companies already that develop software as a service. This is okay. What happens if, for example, that software that you develop crashes? You don't know how many consumers you have, how many hotel rooms, you lost all your reservation, it's gone. Or even if the computer crashed, that's it. Who's gonna fix it? Maybe you have your IT professionals or so on, but it takes time. So in this case, we better go to a company that develops that already. That software already manages everything. It's up to date, continuous updates. You don't need a server in the hotel. Everything is run automatically for you. The only thing is that you have to learn how to use their software. But in the end, it's beneficial also to your employees because, for example, let's say a software as a service in the hospitality industry is called Micros. Micros runs the same interface. Of course, there are some little changes according to the modules that the company want, but it works. It's the same everywhere. So for you as a worker of the hospitality industry, you learn Micros, you can go to 150 hotels and they have it and you know how to use it. So, and it's reliable, it's efficient, it works, no big deal. So in this case, that's how it's the convenience of a software as a service is the best thing. The same thing, for example, for us, we have this Cosmos, no? Kungmin didn't develop it, they just bought it and that's it. Because they could have done their own, but again, why? What's the point of it? So anyways, we talked about the URL strategy, which is you want to register a name for your website that matches what you want, the name, but the problem is sometimes it's already taken. So we have to buy it from someone else or see how we're gonna do, or we can just have another website name and that's all. So in this case, like I said, when we think of the application infrastructure, like I was saying, we have silos of information, which is when I plan the infrastructure, I need to find a way to integrate as much as I can all my departments through data. How that data is going to flow back and forth. If it flows back and forth, that's ideal. Usually we do it through an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, which is softwares that connect everything. And then you have to go through a massive digital transformation to integrate all the processes. So it's very difficult to do it. Why? Because we understand that maybe different departments have different types of technology. So that is an issue. And that's why there are silos. We have separate databases, so we need to integrate them into an ERP. And then, of course, we have different processes. Marketing and finance doesn't work the same. So in this case, we have to think of how to integrate them. And again, this is done through ERPs. ERPs is how to say, la creme of the software when it comes to companies, but companies struggle a lot to do that transformation and integrate all their silos of information and making sure that it flows, right? So again, like I said, we have this ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning. We have SAP, which is the most common one, also Oracle, etc. Okay, so what happens, like I said, in this case, the silos, they start to they have here, for example, here 3 departments, and then the information starts to flow better when we have that. Okay, so here there's some management issues. I'm not gonna go through that. It's not really very important. So I'm gonna even maybe delete that slide. So in this case, like I said, we have options. We have web services of software as a service. Like I said, someone provides it for me, or someone provides already the servers for me. Maybe I develop my software, but you have the server, right? Or a certain platform that we use, like I said, for data storage or development or so. So in this case, we have the different types of of cloud computing, right? More of the server, more of just the software. What do I need from them? And then again, in this case, we use all these tools because we don't have that capacity to develop them on our own. As I said, here benefits are that, no, that like I said, again, they're more reliable than having our own servers in-house. So we also have problems, of course. There are some disadvantages, which is firstly, I rely on a third party. The moment that I give to Amazon, to Microsoft, to whoever I'm providing that whoever is providing that service, I depend on them. And the moment that it either goes too expensive or has some issues in terms of design or so, I depend too much on them. Downtime, again, you get what you pay for. You want very little downtime, you go for the expensive ones, but again, it becomes expensive. You want to go for cheaper service, bear with it. If it breaks down, if the consumer cannot access, if the payments are not reflected, it's up to you. Again, sometimes we can have, it doesn't happen that much often, but we have lower performance in a local database. Sometimes if you have enough power in your local database, information can flow very fast. Sometimes if you have a software as a service and your connection is not too strong and you have some problems with it, then access the information, it may take long because the information of the connection of the internet is not speedy enough. And then finally, we have the data protection. This case, for example, happens a lot with governments. Governments have this challenge, which is they want to use cloud services, but you're talking about the information of a country. And you don't want someone to hack the information of your country. So again, I mean, consumers in and out, yeah, okay, you can have the information of them. It's not too critical, but imagine having the power of all the citizens. You know who they are, what they buy, who they do, how much they pay taxes, etc. So that becomes very critical. And so earlier, before I was talking about how much you get what you pay for. So now companies are thinking of what is called utility computing, which is the same thing as I pay electricity, the same pay as I pay for water, rental. I also have to have a budget for this cloud services or these web services or this computing, right? So this is a utility that I'm paying for good computing, right? So there we have it again. You can pay for that and can be cloud computing, also software as a service. But again, you go with that mentality of I'm not spending a lot. It's a necessary thing. For me to thrive in a digital economy, I need to pay for that service. So again, like I said, we have issues in terms of access, availability, the service level, which is the company is providing or not, security. I already explained all of this. Okay, so very good. So we are done for today. So in this case, again, think whenever we do a digital transformation, we have to think of the infrastructure. What are the implications of it? So anyways, that's all for today. Thank you so much, and I'll be talking to you next week. Thank you so much.